foodstuff and beverages provide consumers with experiential benefits, and they are experience products. So the concept of customer experience is fundamental to understand when companies think of the value they want to provide to consumers. But what is consumer experience? A consumer experience is that combination of sensorial experience, cognitive experience, emotional experience. So it's a combination of emotions, thoughts, sensations that consumers put in place when they buy and consume a product. So the more a product is experiential, the more the value the consumer gets. The point is, how can a company design a highly experienced consumption for consumers? What is important to understand is that consumption experience is only a part of consumer experience. We tend, managers, entrepreneurs, we tend to consider the experience linked only to the consumption. But this is not the case. We as consumers, we experience the product and the service much before, much earlier than the consumption, and also after the consumption. So the whole customer experience is made of different stages, of different components. There is a pre-consumption experience, there is a purchase experience, there is a consumption experience, and there is also a post-consumption experience. What is pre-consumption experience? It's the experience linked to every activity that consumers put in place before buying and consuming the product. So basically it is linked to information gathering, information interpretation. So information gathering and interpretation can appear a very functional activity. So I do collect information because I want to make a choice. But that pre-consumption experience can be made an experience. Think, for example, to a consumer who collects information by reading a newspaper, by reading a magazine, by getting onto a website or into a shop. So the consumer is collecting information, but the experience could be very different. And think, for example, if the website is very nice or it's very bad, it's very nice looking or it's very difficult to interact with. So the consumer is getting information, but the experience is completely different. So a company can increase customer experience by improving the experientiality of the pre-consumption stage, the information collection stage. And then comes the purchase experience. The purchase experience can be divided in two sub-stages. One is the choice experience, and the second one is the shopping experience. What is choice experience? It's the experience that consumers go through when they have to make a choice. So basically comparing products and come up with a final choice. And also this stage can be made experiential. For example, let's think to a consumer or to a couple or to a group of friends which are deciding to spend a weekend in a famous food destination, a city which is very famous for its famous restaurants. So usually when consumers compare alternatives, they try to anticipate, or they anticipate basically, they not try, they anticipate the emotions that they will feel when they go and experience actually the food in that city. So that part can be made experiential again. So companies can increase the experientiality of the choice process. And then the shopping experience. The shopping experience is by definition an experience. Let's imagine consumers entering a shop. So the interaction they have with the environment, the atmosphere, the communication within the shop. Let's think to interaction with other people, with the shop assistant, with the interaction with the products. So this is a very real experience. This could be offline, as in the examples that I just gave, also online. So the interaction that consumers have with a website where they can buy products. So again, this is part of the experience. And then there is consumption experience. I'm impressed by the fact that when managers and entrepreneurs talk about and think of the consumption experience, they make it very simple. But actually, a consumption experience is not as simple as it may appear. In fact, consumers put in place a number of activities in order to get value out of the product and the service. And the competence, the ability they have in putting in place these activities is what allows them to get the value out of the product and the service. And what is important that in many food and beverage businesses, activities, consumption activities are related to rituals. That is to say, these activities are put in a sequence which is very important from a symbolic point of view. Let's compare, for example, drinking a coffee in a Starbucks restaurant or in a typical Italian bar. So the experience is completely different because the ritual tend to be different. In Starbucks, usually consumers spend a lot of time. They do many more things when drinking a coffee. In a typical Italian bar, when Italians go and take an espresso, the experience is faster. They go, drink, and they go away. So the ritual is completely different. But let's think of how many rituals there are when eating out. We're going for an aperitif, we're going for a happy hour. These are all rituals that are put in place during the consumption experience. So for a company, it is important to understand which are the activities, which are the practices, which are the rituals consumers put in place when they consume a product or a service. And then the last stage, the post-consumption experience. It could sound very strange that a consumer can get an experience after the consumption. But think for a while how many people like to share their experience with their peers, with their friends, their relatives in the social networks. This is an experience. That is to say, it's not only functional. I want to recommend a restaurant. I want to recommend a product or a brand that I have already consumed. The point is that consumers, when they like to share their experience, they are getting an experience, a more experience. They are having another experience. They have an increased experience. So basically, what does it mean? That considering the 4 stages of consumer experience, so the pre-consumption, the purchase, which is made of choice and shopping experience, the consumption experience, and the post-consumption experience, gives a more reliable representation of the real consumer experience. For a company, it is very important to understand, to have knowledge of the different stages, because in every of these stages, the company can add experientiality. And by adding experientiality, can add value to the product, to the service, to the value proposition they provide their consumers with.